Hi, everyone. I'm Marcie Jastrow, the Senior Vice President of Immersive Media for Technicolor and the head of the Technicolor Experience Center. I'm here to talk about frictionless adoption, removing barriers to creating, distributing, and experiencing immersive experiences. In VR, over the last 18 months, we have seen a massive production of HMDs, or head-mounted displays. These are the tethered systems for high-end VR content. Oculus and HTC have sold hundreds of thousands of these devices. And recently, Sony announced that they are running ahead of forecast with almost 1 million PlayStation VR devices shipped. These may sound like big numbers. However, if you were selling a movie and you sold 1.5 million tickets, that would generate some 15 million in change in sales. In Hollywood, you would probably get fired for that financial performance. Yet in the VR community, we are all in awe and with our numbers, and we try to convince ourselves that our numbers are so encouraging. The fact is that we have a long way to go, and the challenges to our growth extend beyond creating compelling content and harnessing cool technology. I think we really do have to ask ourselves, what will bring people into the headset? I ask this question every single day. In fact, it keeps me up at night pondering what is the breakthrough piece of content or technology that will drive adoption. I wonder, though, is this really the right question to ask? As I see it, we have a bigger problem: friction. When you look at it, it takes a hell of a lot of effort to get people into these headsets. Yet at the Technicolor Experience Center, we run demos all the time. It often takes our team a lot of effort and dialogue to prep these experiences. Willing participants still need guidance about how to use the equipment and navigate the experience. It's not plug and play, it's friction. Here's an example of a video that we created in the tech to show you what it's like to get people inside the headsets. Get the lights.
Is it supposed to be black?
Thank you to my team at the center for making that lovely video. So I'm exaggerating a little bit. He actually didn't throw up, but that is something that happens every day at the center. And it's totally understandable given where the industry is today. But the real question is, how long can we afford to stay in this state? It should prompt us to consider whether history offers any clues about what we can do to accelerate mass adoption. I'm pretty sure there are models out there for how to create a healthy market that will fund content creation and generate opportunities for distributors, while also driving consumer engagement with the devices that render the experience. Let's take a trip back to some frictionless examples of adoption and technology. When Facebook came onto the scene, they made it easy to build the community. They gave you the ability to email your entire contact list, inviting them to become your Facebook friend. So once you realized an email went out to your closest friends, family, and acquaintances, You were freaking out, wondering and thinking, do they really want to be my friend? Or in my case, I can't believe I just sent a friend request to Ben Affleck. But the point is, overnight, you went from 1 friend to 50 to 100 and much, much more. It was frictionless. You played farm games, you got used to the interface, you got pissed when they changed the interface. Well, you get the idea. After talking about digital movie making for 20 years, the arrival of digital intermediates in the late 1990s accelerated the adoption of digital production. People started getting used to the idea of digital movie making. Technology started introducing ways to digitally enhance the production and post-production process. The idea of a digital intermediate came online, and rather than throwing a real number to those budgets, post houses added together all the costs that would attribute to a film budget, added them up, and voila, you now had your number in the DI. The budgets themselves did not change for many years after, but at some point, digital content creation became frictionless, and adoption in the industry soared. On a snowy Paris evening, 2 men had trouble hailing a cab. So they came up with a simple idea: tap a button, get a ride. Today, Uber is the premier way to get a car in most cities, not to mention the millions of jobs they created. The point here is they made it frictionless. So now let's look at where we are in VR today. While a ton of cool things are going on, we would be foolish to not look at some of the structural barriers, many of our own making, that are standing in the way of frictionless adoption. Before I go any further, let me assure you that there is no greater fan of this emerging medium than me. In fact, I have staked my career on it. And I've staked my career on the potential of the artists and the technologists who are exploring this uncharted territory. This is all the more reason to take a hard look at where we are today and what we need to do to permanently avoid a science experiment. In a medium that competes with on-demand movies, television, and music, we need to focus on how to capture people's precious leisure time. Because devices are not readily available to the mass market, people are not going out and buying headsets or gaming computers in the numbers necessary to reach the tipping point. One reason for this is that too few people are trying these technologies in the first place, and when they do try them, it is a one-time occurrence with no reason to get them back in the headset. We're not creating enough opportunities for people to fall in love with this new medium. And then, even if they do go out and buy a gaming computer and a headset, uploading the content onto the device or the platform to enjoy the experience is not as easy and intuitive as it should be. Intuitiveness is the key to frictionless. Back when I was working on Avatar with Jim Cameron, he came up with a code name, which we often do for high security titles. His code name was the number 880. It was a strange code name because it didn't seem to relate to anything in the movie. One day I asked, what's the story behind the code name? And here's what they told me. Everybody from the age of 8 to 80 needs to see this film. The film, as you all know, was a breakthrough success. It represented a different way to tell a story, but from the very beginning and through the entire production process, Jim was focused on one thing that mattered most, and that was connecting seamlessly to the audience as possible. He was not interested in selling the experience to 1.5 million consumers. He wanted everyone from 8 to 80 to experience the movie. So what if we built an integrated ecosystem based on an open innovation? It's actually not a bad objective for all of us in this room to take on. In fact, I think it basically will take everyone working together to build an integrated ecosystem from content creation through distribution to consumption. This is necessary to achieve the kind of scale and consumer impact that will make immersive content an important part of the media mix around the world. As is often the case in early days of disruptive innovation, we have huge variety of formats, platforms, and distribution channels that are difficult for the consumers to navigate or access. It is also a very complicated model for our key go-to-market partners to rationalize financially. And so here I think it is important to be clear. An effective ecosystem is not the same as a strategy for monetizing your content. Sure, you might be able to create a niche demand for people to buy a 20-minute piece of content to run on a $1,200 game PC and require a $500 head-mounted display. But you're not going to create mass market this way. Building an ecosystem for emerging immersive experience is going to require hard work, collaboration, a hell of a lot of diplomacy across the entire value chain. But that is how huge markets are made. We have to start thinking about how we can co-create an open ecosystem that allows much content to be created that can run on as many platforms as possible. This can drive down the cost for content for consumers while raising margins and revenue for all participants in the value chain. This is not the case today. If I'm creating something on Unity, I can't port it to Unreal, and vice versa. If I create a 360-degree video, it's entirely different than producing an interactive video. And by the way, once I create these masters for wide distribution, I then have to create 14 different deliverables with different specs. In fact, in most cases, the picture is not even sunk with audio until it gets delivered to the platform, making it very difficult to even know if what you delivered was correct. Clearly not a frictionless path from production through distribution. This was the whole point in encrypting a DCP, to make sure creative intent was protected and the content was secure. What we really need to do is have a serious and difficult ongoing conversation about how each of us can contribute to the development of an intuitive, frictionless ecosystem that drives value and demand for immersive content, distribution, and consumption. So here's another thing that I've been thinking about. I've come to the conclusion that it may very well take a strong brick-and-mortar initiative to drive digital adoption for immersive experiences. Now, before you look at me like I'm crazy, let's remember how Netflix got started and how in its humble beginnings, using the Postal Service as a distribution platform for the physical disc rental offering, not only began the rapid process of putting Blockbuster out of business, it also laid the economic foundation that has shaken the traditional cable, satellite, and telco industries by pioneering OTT services. The way I see it, we need more physical outlets. For the next chunk of time, the more the better. We need to create ways for people to come across these experiences in their daily lives, whether it's shopping, grabbing lunch, waiting for your coffee, so that they can give this exciting new category of content a try. As many of you know, last year, we launched the Technicolor Experience Center in Culver. Right now, one of its most important functions is to serve as a showroom that allows all types of people a chance to try the different types of content and artistic expression. Hundreds of people, most of the folks in this industry, come through and are frankly jazzed about what they experience. But like I mentioned, the experience is only viable because we have super knowledgeable docents who walk them through the experiences. The cool thing is the same showroom also is a critically important experimental lab. We get a front row seat in how people interact with the full spectrum of immersive experiences. Every day we learn something new, discover a hiccup that needs to be addressed. I would argue that we need hundreds of these showrooms/labs around the country and around the world. Hell, we need thousands. I think the combination of exposing consumers to new experiences and actively observing how people interact with these experiences can be linked to a feedback loop that helps create better content. This is a straightforward way to push the boundaries of immersive mediums to create more intuitive and frictionless experiences. As we get a better understanding of user experience, content creators will begin to understand how to engage with the audiences. We will then be in a strong position to figure out how to better digitally deliver these immersive experiences through the communication infrastructures that tie us all together. This is why we need to go out and engage with the satellite, cable, and telco service providers who are investing in infrastructure upgrades that will make it possible to deliver rich, interactive, full-fledged immersive experiences into the home. So where does this leave us? Some of the leading experts in content creations are here. I also see here technologists who are pushing the boundaries of what entertainment should be. But are we all pulling in the same direction? This is the mission of the Technicolor Experience Center. We are looking for the ties that bind us and to move the state-of-the-art forward as quickly as possible. We want to create an environment that will allow us all to fail fast, learn, innovate, and evolve. Specifically, we're looking for the content creators who have interesting new stories that they want to tell in new ways. We're also searching for the new technologies that create the canvas that advances our storytelling culture. But most of all, what we want to understand is how can we best engage the consumers so that we can all find ways to generate demand for the immersive experiences that I think that will define the future of entertainment. We are hosting close to 30 to 40 people per week at the Tech, showing them our content and other people's content. We are getting great feedback from technologists and players in the distribution chain so that together we can create, iterate, and consume. In my view, there are two things that are certain about the future of this immersive medium. There is not one single company that can create the value proposition that will completely meet the rich, nuanced demands for immersive experiences. And number two, the ecosystem that will fulfill the potential of this opportunity will not be built by accident. So here's my invitation. Let's work together. Let's look for ways to integrate what we do while preserving creative freedom. Let's find ways to get as much content to as many consumers as possible in a fully accessible manner. This is important because VR, AR, and the other flavors of immersive expression truly represent a whole new way to explore the human condition, understand each other, learn, and evolve. Thank you.